Hey there, listeners. This is your host, Trenz, signing in, and welcome to another episode of Trenz Podcast. For today's episode, I will be doing a book review of author Agatha Christie's books from the Hercule Poirot series. The title of the books are The Murder in Mesopotamia and Three-Act Tragedy. Also, follow me on my social media accounts such as Instagram at TrenzYBA, Twitter at Trenz Ibanez, and on YouTube, Katrina Ibanez. Without further ado, let's begin the book review. And here is the first book review for this episode. Title: Murder in Mesopotamia. Author: Agatha Christie. Genre: fiction, classic, crime, and mystery. Number of pages: 264. And I started reading this book on May 28, 2022, and finished reading it on May 31st, 2022. And the format that I read was an ebook. And now on to the review section. I will definitely recommend this book, another great book written by author Agatha Christie. During an expedition in Hassane, a murder has happened, and here are the members of the expedition: Mr. Coleman, Dr. Riley and his daughter Sheila Riley, Father Lavigny, Miss Johnson, Mr. Keeter, Mr. Carey, and Mr. Emmett, Mr. and Mrs. Mercado, and Dr. Lidney, with the addition of Nurse Letheran, and the murder victim was Mrs. Lidnier, and they were lucky that a certain Belgian detective and his little grey cells were passing through Hassane on his way to Baghdad. Hercule Poirot is on the case, and everyone is a suspect until proven innocent. And in true Agatha Christie fashion, the murderer is the person that you least expect to murder the victim. The little clues left behind sometimes lead you to the completely wrong direction. And on a side note, Father Lavigny and his accomplice were there for a completely different crime, like stealing precious artifacts. And if you want to figure out why and how it all happened, read the book to find out. For the second book review on today's episode, it's the book Three-Act Tragedy, and the author is Agatha Christie. The genre is still fiction, crime, mystery, and classics. I started reading this book on the 1st of June 2022 and finished reading this book on the 4th of June 2022. Once again, the format is an ebook, and this has become one of my favorite books. And I will definitely recommend this book. Once again, another great book from Agatha Christie. The story opens up with Mr. Satterwhite being invited by Sir Charles Cartwright to a party at his bungalow named Crown's Nest. Amongst those who are invited are Sir Bartholomew Strange, a doctor who owns a sanatorium, and there's Mrs. Cynthia Dacres and Mr. Dacres, Miss Angela Sutcliffe, Miss Willis, Lady Mary Lightengore, and her daughter Hermione Egg Lightengore, and she is called Egg for some reason. Her nickname in most of the book, she's called Egg. Mr. and Mrs. Babington, Oliver Mander, and our favorite Belgian detective, Hercule Poirot. As they were drinking cocktails, Mr. Babington started looking ill and eventually falls dead. A local doctor named Dr. MacDougall says he died due to a heart attack. And after so much drama with Sir Charles saying that he will leave and sell Crow's Nest, we move on to Sir Bartholomew Strange house party. He kept saying that he had a big surprise for everyone, but he died in a somewhat similar manner to Mr. Babington. This time, they were drinking a completely different drink, and 6 out of 10 guests from Sir Bartholomew Strange's house party were also present in Sir Charles' party. And the members who were present in both parties are Mr. and Mrs. Dargis, Miss Sutcliffe, Lady Mary Lightengore and her daughter Hermione Lightengore, and Oliver Manders. But this time, the doctor actually did. They examined Sir Bartholomew's body and found out he died of nicotine poisoning. And what's strange about this is before it all happened, Sir Bartholomew received a call from his sanatorium about his patient, Mrs. D. Rushbridger, who has amnesia, being admitted back into the sanatorium. And so, Egg reaches out to Sir Charles through a letter to come back and help them solve the murder of Sir Bartholomew Strange. And now the three people meet up. Mr. Satterwhite, Sir Charles Cartwright, and Egg Lightengore meet up and try to solve the murder of Sir Bartholomew Strange, and they are later joined by Hercule Poirot, who admits that he made a mistake by saying that Mr. Babington could not have been murdered. And so the four are now convinced that there is a strange connection with the two murders or deaths of Sir Bartholomew Strange and Mr. Babington. And so an exhumation order for Mr. Babington's body has been given, and after thorough examination, it has been discovered that Mr. Babington also died of nicotine poisoning. And as the little clues left by Agatha Christie starts piling up, Hercule Poirot is now on his theory that there are going to be three murders. The first murder was Mr. Babington. The second murder was Sir Bartholomew Strange's murder. And there will be a third murder in the future. And it so happens once they interview all the guests of Sir Charles Cartwright's party, Hercule Poirot begins to put the pieces together. Hercule Poirot arranges a experiment, which is a sherry party, inviting the guests at Sir Cartwright's party. So once again, Mrs. Cynthia Darkes and Mr. Darkes, Miss Angela Sutcliffe, Miss Phyllis, Lady Mary Lightengore and her daughter Hermione Egg Lightengore, Oliver Manders, Sir Cartwright, Mr. Satterwhite, and Miss Milray are in attendance. And there has been a fake murder attempt on Sir Charles Cartwright, and after that fake murder attempt, Hercule Poirot receives a letter from the sanatorium saying that Mrs. D. Rushbridger knows why Bartholomew Strange had been murdered. Along the way, they split up into two groups. In one group is Egg Lightengore and Sir Cartwright, where Egg finds out that Sir Charles Cartwright's birth name was actually Sir Charles Mugg, and that surname is very important to the story. On the other hand, Mr. Satterwhite and Hercule Poirot go to the sanatorium to visit Mrs. D. Rushbridger, and they were told by the matron that Mrs. D. Rushbridger had been murdered via nicotine poisoning through a box of chocolates. As predicted by Hercule Poirot, a third murder has been committed. And now on to Hercule Poirot's theory about the murders. His theory is that Mr. Babington's murder was a rehearsal murder for the real person that the murderer wanted to kill, and he wanted to see that his method of poisoning someone with nicotine would pass the test and be seen as natural causes. And it worked out pretty well with Mr. Babington's murder, the sleight of hand with the cocktail glass, and so he planned the real murder. The murder of Sir Bartholomew Strange. What the murderer didn't count on was there would be an autopsy done by a coroner on Mr. Bartholomew's dead body, which proved that he died of nicotine poisoning, which led to the exhumation of Mr. Babington's body, which also led to the discovery of nicotine poisoning. And just to throw people off, Mrs. de Rushbringer was poisoned because she did not know anything. That was just done to get Sir Satterwhite, Egg Gore, Hercule Poirot, and Charles Cartwright to look elsewhere for the murderer, as it turned out that it was Sir Cartwright who did it all along. And to find out why he did it and why his surname of Mug is very important, read the book to find out. Hey there, listeners. That's all for today's episode of Trenz Podcast. You can find Trenz Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to follow or subscribe and leave a comment. And if you want to hear more book reviews and other topics, stay tuned for another episode and keep on listening.